Hello and welcome to the Malibu Pacific Church podcast. If you haven't listened to this past week's Sunday sermon, please press pause now and listen to that so this podcast makes a little more sense. Hey, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but you do you. Keep listening. All right. So everybody, we have a special guest this week. We have...
Hey, Darren.
It's Darren, everybody. Can you tell it's Darren?
It's me. Well, look, it's, we were unsure about how we would do this podcast just because of my accent. Mm-hmm. So there will be closed captioning. No, there won't be. But probably whatever browser you're looking at probably has a closed captioning feature. So it'd actually be interesting to click on that and see what actually transpires.
Absolutely.
As the algorithm interprets my accent. But yes, I'm not from these parts. So g'day, everybody.
Hey.
And, there you go, bit of Australiana for you.
I love that.
Hey, yeah.
I love that. All right. Well, we got Darren here. He's new to staff, and it's awesome having him here at Malibu Pacific Church. All right, so you've been here for just a couple months now.
A couple of months.
Yeah.
And it's been a whirlwind just before we went to two services, actually.
Sure.
I think I was here for 2 weeks, and then we went to two services.
Yep.
And so it's been crazy. It felt like the first couple of weeks was kind of like drinking out of a fire hose.
Yeah, totally.
But just getting to know everybody here, and what a fantastic environment, incredible staff. What an amazing community. A real honor to be here and just excited to build with you guys and continue on this incredible, really, season of growth in the life of the church. I've been doing, I've been in full-time ministry for over 30 years and seeing churches grow the way that Malibu Pacific is growing right now is very unusual. Mostly what happens is it's it's a slow kind of trajectory. You build kind of one family at a time, but here, we're seeing an incredible surge of people from the community as we, continue to just press into what God's calling us to do here at Malibu Pacific.
For sure.
And really the vision that Pastor Andy's outlined for us is producing incredible results. So it's an honor just to come alongside the incredible team that already was here. They've done all the hard work. I just kind of come in and move the chairs a little bit. That's my job.
I love it.
Shuffle the chairs.
I love it. All right. So what's one thing you really hate about Malibu? No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
the view.
I'll tell you this, right? It's when you haven't lived, when the views here are just so incredible, right?
Right. Insane.
But I will be honest with you. It's when you haven't had it, you don't know when it's been taken away from you. And these last 2 weeks with this fog every morning, I'm like, I wake up and I go, where's my view gone?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? I'm a little angry with the Lord. Like, you brought me here to Malibu and now there's no view.
You can't even,
So the Lord and I have a little conversation. He assures me that within the next 7 days, it should clear up. So
yeah, it should.
That's the word of the Lord for you.
There you go. And you are his beloved. So
well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be a stoning in my future.
Hey,
prophet. It's all good.
Oh, that's so good. All right, so we're in session 2 of Born to Lead.
Yeah.
And as you're working with your sermon, what's your sermon process? So we can kind of get to know you a little bit more.
Oh wow, my sermon process.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be a softball interview.
No, it is softball interview.
No, my process is I start at the end and work back.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm very much my process. I've been preaching kind of 3 times a week for 25 years. So that's a lot of words.
That's a lot of words.
Actually, when I came here to Malibu Pacific, when I was talking with Pastor Andy, he was saying, "Hey, would love to get you preaching and stuff like that." And I was like, you know what? I've said enough words. People don't need to hear me talk anymore. I've said plenty of things, but it's something obviously that I enjoy doing. But my process, I start at the end and work my way back. I start with what's the one thing. I always ask myself, what's the one thing I want rattling around in people's mind when they leave?
Cool.
I'm not foolish enough to believe that every word that comes out of my mouth when I'm preaching is going to be retained. In fact, statistics show that it's actually a very, very small percentage of the things. So what I'm really looking to do in any environment where I'm communicating is to narrow it down to what's 1 or 2 things that people can latch onto that they can, when they walk out of here, when today as they're going about their busy day, that it can come, that thing can come to mind, and,
Yeah.
and that'll be so. I think so. Interestingly, in the first service, probably the one that's on the podcast, I didn't actually get to one of my kind of big points at the end. We were running a little short on time, and so, but that's fine. In the second service, they got a better version. So come to the second service. It's we have a little bit more latitude to run a little longer in the second service. But starting at the end and it's not backfilling the information. It's more just making sure that everything that I'm presenting points to one thing.
For sure.
So then at the end, people are going, "Oh, that's the one thing," and so
that's awesome.
And hopefully that works.
It totally does. So. After preaching this past Sunday, what would have been that one thing that you would have want people to really latch onto? I
think really the at the end I did 3 Darren's top tips. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Darren's top tips. I got them here because I don't want to say them wrong, but probably the 3 things that I want really people to hold on to. The presence of resistance is not the absence of God. When I was preparing the message, that was actually the first thing that I really held on to, because I know that in my Christian life, it's very easy for us when we sense that there is, like, we're doing something, we're stepping out, and something isn't going, like we face some resistance, there's some obstacle. There is a very strong temptation to think, oh, that's God closing the door.
Yeah.
And I think often I've heard, when you've been around church a long time, and I was basically born in church. So, I can't hardly think of a Sunday where I didn't go to church. So for me, I've heard a lot of people over the years say things like, oh, well, the Lord's shutting this door. And when you really kind of dig down into it, what they're really talking is about an obstacle. And the Bible is filled with stories where people who are on their journey, they're called by God, they're on a journey and they face an obstacle.
Yeah.
And it seems like human nature is very quick to perceive an obstacle as being God pointing us in a different direction. I think the children of Israel, they've been led out of Egypt. These incredible miracles have taken place. They're on their way. Basically, a supernatural thing has taken place. God has been so in them being able to leave Egypt to the point where Pharaoh said, just go. And so they start to go. And then Pharaoh, they're down the road and Pharaoh changes his mind, but they come to the first obstacle. They come to a sea. And their temptation immediately is to go, oh no, we've made a mistake. Let's go back to Egypt. Yeah, it was fine. It was fine. Everything's fine. It's like there was a real obstacle, and that's no doubt. But their instinct was to perceive that as, oh, we've made the wrong move. And I think there's some of that in all of us. I think the children of Israel are a depiction of us. The mistakes that they make along the way. God does something obvious and ostentatious and amazing and breakthrough, and within 10 minutes we're perceiving something completely different. We're thankful for 5 minutes, and then we go, oh no, there's something else in
but what about?
It's like, hey, manna from heaven. Next minute, we're building idols. It's
totally.
Like, it's kind of, but, and we look at it and we go, how could they be so ridiculous? But I think in our lives, if we're honest, we have that same propensity for ridiculousness, as the children of Israel did. And so I think this is one of the things I really wanted people to understand from what I was saying this weekend, was that you face resistance, it's not the absence of God. It doesn't mean that God has left you. It doesn't mean that God isn't for you. It doesn't mean that God doesn't want you to continue to push through. In fact, it more than likely, it's now God wanting to partner with you to propel you into that future. And so resistance is often an opportunity for us to get out of the way and let God do what only He can do. And so my hope would be that that was one of the things that I really, when I was preparing the message, it was the first thing that came to mind when I was thinking about it.
That's awesome.
And probably the second thing that I really wanted people to hold on to is that be committed to the vision, not to the process. Because I think it's so easy for us to build altars around processes and strategies rather than outcomes. And, I've been in church my whole life. And so I've seen so many different styles of church, ways of doing church, methodologies, strategies, emphasis, you name it. I've seen it and probably participated in it. Not snake wrangling. I haven't done that.
Okay.
But up until that point.
Up until that point.
No
okay.
snakes yet.
Okay.
But,
we can get AI to get you holding snakes.
We can work that out next Sunday.
For sure.
But so but in all of that, it's understanding that the vision that God has given us to build the church has never changed.
Yep.
And what he's calling us to do, to go into all the world and make disciples, that's what we're called to do. Now, we come up with other ways of expressing that. But at the end of the day, what is it that the church is here to do? It's to introduce people to Jesus.
Yep.
And then to help them to live out that decision.
For sure.
And that's the Christian life, right? So there's the process of coming to Jesus, and then there's a process of discipleship, which is once I've come to Jesus, then me growing in him.
Yeah.
And so those are really the two functions that the church exists to do. And so as long as the church is doing those two things, I'm all for it.
For sure.
And so it doesn't really matter about the style. It doesn't matter about the emphasis. It doesn't matter about, the things that we do. It doesn't matter about the food that we eat or the behaviors we exhibit. If it is all pointing toward people doing that, right up until the point, Pastor Andy said it, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, he said, right up to the point of sin, it's all fair game. We're not going to sin, but right up until that point, then we're all about it.
Yeah.
And so that's so important within the life of the church. And I think it's important in our lives because often we get stuck in a rut, not because the vision is wrong. It's because we're in a rut because we haven't adjusted our strategy.
Ooh.
We haven't gone, you know what, this way that I'm doing something, it's not working.
Yeah.
Let's move over here.
Yeah.
And that's why I love that saying that an old pastor of mine used to say, if the horse is dead, dismount.
Totally.
If the horse is dead, and I it's a byproduct of the old saying, flogging a dead horse, but it's kind of true. Yeah. Often we're just whipping something, hoping, they say the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Totally.
And I wonder how many of us are locked into that paradigm at some level in our life. Maybe it's in our marriage.
Yeah.
Maybe we're struggling to lead our family effectively because we're using bad methodologies. It's not that our vision is bad. We all want great kids. We all want a great marriage. We all want successful families. Yeah. All those things are all right and true, but often we're the methods that we're using aren't helping, and so we give up and we throw our hands in the air and go, well, it's kids today, or it's social media, or it's modern society, it's something else other than the thing that you're actually responsible for. Yeah, which is just changing it up. Sometimes a change is as good as a holiday. Yeah, and sometimes we just need to say, this strategy that we're using is not working anymore. Yeah, let's just change it up. And I know if you've been around MPC for more than 5 minutes, you'll know that we love to change it up.
Oh, absolutely.
And the constant here at Malibu Pacific is change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's the only thing that doesn't change itself is change.
And I think it personally, who doesn't want to go to an environment where you know that there is a level of a consistency, but that there's going to be different sprinkles.
Yeah, totally.
Like if I want a cupcake, I know that I want a cupcake. I know that there's certain things that I want in that cupcake, right? Yeah. But I don't want to eat the same cupcake all the time. Totally. Sometimes I'm going to want a blueberry, sometimes I'm going to want chocolate chips, I'm going to want sprinkles on top, sometimes I'm going to want some frosting. And that's really what we're talking about. It's still a cupcake. Yeah, it's just that it's a different flavor, it's a different texture, it's a different frosting, and that's really what we get to do. And I wonder how many of us in our lives, that's really the thing that we need to make an adjustment in.
For sure.
And so resistance in your world or obstacles in our world aren't necessarily an indicator that the vision is wrong. It's perhaps that the strategy that you're using to fulfill the vision has a problem.
Gotcha.
And our willingness, the word that I used on Sunday was pivot.
Yeah.
Being willing to pivot.
Yeah.
Just pivot. And
I think it's hard for people to pivot, to be real honest. It's like one of the things that humanity has always been stubborn about.
It's funny, isn't it? And I wonder, I don't know where there is. I think we are addicted to a comfort zone. And comfort is a byproduct of consistency. It's not actually a byproduct of, it's not a byproduct of actually being comfortable. Like I think there are often many behaviors that we do that we find comfort in that aren't actually the most comfortable behavior.
Yeah.
They're not actually it's not the thing that profit us the most, but it's just the way that we've always done it.
Yeah.
Or that we've always seen it done. And I wonder, perhaps, what I love about God is that then the Bible's really clear. Over and over, it talks about the fact that God is wanting to bring a new revelation, that he's wanting to do a new thing.
Yeah.
That there is something new. God isn't locked in a certain period of time and looking at everything through the lens of that moment in time. Because it'd be funny to think that he did.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine, like, God's not locked in the 40s and 50s, and he's certainly not locked in Bible times, and he's not locked in the Old Testament nor in the beginning of the New Testament. God is in all places, in all time zones, at all times. He already knows what's in front of us too.
Yeah.
And so our willingness to allow him to mold our ways. The Bible says that the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. So our ability to continue to go to him and to say, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. Not my strategy, but your strategy.
Totally.
Not the thing that I'm the most comfortable with, but the thing, God, that you're calling me to do. Because often our breakthrough is just beyond what we're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The thing that we're actually trying to do, because the Bible says that without faith, it's impossible to please God. So faith is the distance between where you are or your comfort zone in this moment and where God's calling you to be.
Yeah.
So every time to live the Christian life means that we're always having to step out of what's comfortable for me and step into what God's calling me to do. And the truth is that we all are constantly in a state of growth. Like you and I will continue to grow, to mature till the day that we die.
Totally.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
If that's not happening, it's because we've chosen to just lock down in a certain zone. In a certain season.
Like an Arrested Development.
Yeah. And human nature is, I call it building altars. We build these altars. That's what the children of Israel did in the Old Testament. They built idols, which was basically an image, a structure that they were then pointing toward. Which ultimately just becomes a distraction from actually the vision. Yeah. And I think we're really good at doing that.
Absolutely.
We're good at building these altars around things that are changeable, and failing to actually worship the things that never change. And to focus on that. So, that was my hope, that I was getting that across.
Absolutely. So, I think you absolutely did, man. It was really good. The ending, though, I loved it when you're like, Darren's top tips. I feel like we need to have a little newsletter or something. Those need to go out every week.
I think so. I think Andy's top tips.
Yeah.
Amy's top tips. Joel's top tips. Because I think if you can just break it down to just a couple of ideas and just go, I can hang on to those things. You don't have to remember all the verses. You don't have to remember all the narrative, all that kind of stuff. We'll do that on Sunday, and we'll talk you through all of that. We can just remember it's a couple of big ideas. In the last service, in the second service, I kind of finished with the big line that I was kind of pointing everyone toward, and that was that, you don't need a smaller problem, you need a bigger God. And I think that's the reality for most of us.
Absolutely.
If you're really honest about your prayer life, what you're probably going to discover real fast is that the majority of your prayer is asking God to solve your problem.
Yep.
God, make my problem smaller. I think it's human nature.
Completely.
But what I've discovered in God's word is that for the most part, God doesn't make your problem smaller. What he does is he gives you strategies and wisdom to be able to overcome those problems. And so our hope should never be in the problems going away or becoming smaller. Our hope should always be that God will give us wisdom. That's why Solomon was such a great leader. It's because what was the one thing that he asked from God when he could have asked for anything? He didn't say, take all my problems away, give me wealth and riches, although God did end up giving him all of those things. He said, Lord, give me wisdom. So that when the struggles come, and I know they will, when the problems arise, and I know they will, when the obstacles are there that I need to overcome, give me wisdom to be able to respond to those things well. And his life became an example of wisdom in action.
Mhm.
And that's God. That is the trend that we see in the Word of God. It's not that God can't do miraculous things, and He does. And it's not that God can't intervene supernaturally, because He does.
Yeah.
But how He wants us to posture is not a relationship with Him, which is kind of, what have you done for me lately, God?
Yeah.
It's more, God, give me wisdom. Lord, show me the path. Show me how you want me to respond to this person.
Yep.
Show me how you want me to navigate this situation. Give me wisdom to do it, because God is looking for a partnership.
Yeah.
He's not looking to just overwhelm and overcome everything. What He's looking is to partner with you and I so that we would grow in relationship with Him.
Mhm.
And how He does that is by showing us the path forward.
Totally.
And so that's kind of, I think, a big issue for us. So for us to get to that point, it's important that our posture toward God is not one of, God, can you fix all this?
Yeah.
It's one of, Lord, show me the way. And for that, you have to have faith. You have to believe that He knows,
Mhm.
that He has already made a way. And so I think often, and people ask me all the time, I've been in church for my whole life, but why do we sing? Why do we do worship at the beginning of the service? Well, I'll tell you why. The reason that we do it is because it's an opportunity for you to get out of your own head.
Mhm.
I don't know about you, but I find myself in my own head so much, thinking about the things that are going on in my world, thinking about my work, thinking about my relationships, thinking about all those kind of things. And it requires discipline to make God the focus of your attention.
Yeah.
And so the reason why we put worship at the beginning of the service is because what we want is for you to come into the house of God and give you an opportunity to be able to focus not on you, but to focus on Him and put Him in the right place, kind of reshuffle the deck of your life.
Totally.
So that the King of Kings is the top card.
Yes.
Right? So that's kind of the goal that we're after, so that then when whoever's doing when Pastor Andy gets up to preach, you're already in that mindset. You're already going, you know what? I've reshuffled the deck.
Yeah.
God's at the top. So then as Pastor Andy communicates to us what got the vision and what God's calling us to do here at Malibu Pacific, then there's a place for that to hold on to.
Yeah.
So there is kind of a method to the madness, but it is that idea of reshuffling the deck. The Old Testament uses a different phrase. It talks the King David, who is kind of he's kind of like the pivotal kind of story anchor of the Old Testament, right? A lot of things revolve around David. He's kind of, God even basically says he's one of my favorites, even though he was an incredible person. We all know the story of David and Goliath.
Yeah.
That's the David I'm talking about. He became king, but he was an incredible man, but also a flawed man.
Yeah.
But God describes him as like His most beloved. So there's clearly a keen relationship. Well, David, the Psalms are really are a byproduct of David really crying out to God, and so if you ever read the Psalms, they're kind of angsty. They're kind of the Alanis Morissette of the, they start the same. They basically start with complaints. Like,
Totally.
Lord, why is this not working? And things aren't going.
What was me? What was the world?
Things. My enemies are against me, and people hate me, and all that kind of stuff. But they always end the same. And it's basically David kind of going, even though all that's happening, you know what? I'm gonna worship you anyway.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put you in your rightful place, Lord.
Yep.
And that's kind of the narrative of every psalm.
Totally.
But one of the things that David uses this phrase, and he says, "Magnify the Lord." And it's a funny idea. It's like it doesn't make sense in our modern vernacular. We never kind of use that word. We talk about magnifying glasses. We know what that is. Yep. But David uses terms, I will magnify the Lord. And I love the imagery because it's really what I'm talking about here. Magnifying the Lord is going, my perspective of God is too small. I need to put I need a new lens, a new set of eyes that make God bigger in my world. Yeah. And so when we magnify the Lord, that's exactly what we're doing. We used to sing songs back in the day. Oh, magnify the Lord.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
But that was all in a that's what I'm talking about. Is we need to have mechanisms in our world to put God in his rightful place and to make him appear much bigger in our world, and that's our responsibility. And honestly, sometimes all it requires is just taking a walk down the ocean and just sit on the beach and look and just go, this is incredible. Look at what God has done. Look at what God has made. Go to one of the higher places in Malibu and just overlook the creation and go, the God of the universe wants to be in relationship with me. Like that he actually loves me, cares for me, has a plan and a purpose for my life. Man, that's magnifying the Lord. And that's kind of making him bigger in our world so that then the things that we're facing, we see ourselves partnering with him, and the obstacles and the resistance that we face every day, we feel much bolder and more confident to be able to take that on.
Awesome. Well, I love your third top tip. Loved all of them, but be committed to the outcome and flexible with the process. I think that's just, everybody needs to hear that. Be committed to the outcome, just because things aren't going your way for a little bit or a season or a day or an hour, things like that. No, God has a bigger plan and a bigger purpose than you could ever imagine for your life. And so it's reassuring, to hear those kinds of things too. Just be flexible, be able to pivot. I mean, if you're not able to be flexible or pivot, that's when I think the enemy comes in, to be really honest, because they're going to be like, oh yeah, you're stuck. You can't do it. And when you're stuck like that, that's what I just know this. This one, the devil is like, all right, I got you, and really we're supposed to be leaning on the Lord. And that's when God says, hey, no, I got you.
100%. And I guarantee you, look, you may be going through a rough spot in your life right now, but I think if you are honest and look around your world to people who are perhaps living the type of life that you desire for yourself, who have a measure of success and I guarantee that if you sit and you spend some time and talk with them, I will guarantee you that their story will be one of, it'll go like this. I was heading in a certain direction and I thought that this is what my life was going to look like. And I was following this type of career. And then all of a sudden an opportunity arose and I pivoted. And I was either through a relationship or a connection or something happened. I love the phrase, I like the idea, small, big doors swing on little hinges. It's that relationship, that opportunity, and I stepped into it, and all of a sudden, this whole other world opened up to me. And the life I'm living now isn't the one that I initially set out to live, but rather it's one because I was willing to pivot. I was willing to make that change. I was willing to take that opportunity. I was willing to take that pay cut to step into that new thing. I was willing to move to a different location. I was willing to uproot my family and do all those types of things. That's what you'll find in those people's stories. So the willingness to pivot. I know, you and I could wax lyrical about this, the things when we started out in ministry, the things that we were doing then are completely different from the things we do now.
Completely.
And if we had just been locked and said, no, this is, it's an identity issue at the end of the day.
Totally.
We're going to go, well, this is who I am. This is who I am. But who you are as a child of God.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing that you are. Everything else is an option. Right. Everything else is flexible. Everything else can change. And so, if you look, every Bible character didn't set out to be the person they ended up being. Every one of them. Moses didn't set out to lead a nation. He was a stutterer. That could barely put a couple of words together, and an orphan. So he was unqualified in every regard. David was the same. He was a shepherd. He became a king. It doesn't. Everywhere you look, it's unqualified people that God is choosing and raising up to do incredible things, and that's you and me too.
Absolutely. So, hey, we're unqualified. We did it.
Love it.
Thanks, Darren, for that.
Just accept it.
Thanks for the wise words, man. Well, that's awesome. Well, everybody, we just want to say thank you to Darren preaching a good word, man.
That was fun.
It was good stuff, man. It really was. We're looking forward to you preaching again, and some new series as well coming up around the corner.
I tell you, I'm excited for what's in front. I mean, we got some really cool stuff coming up. Pastor Andy's outlined just some real good stuff coming into the new year. I'm just saying, buckle up, church.
Oh yeah.
Turn up early, because to get a seat these days,
you
want to be here on time.
Absolutely.
It's always a great treat. What do you have, burritos this week?
Oh my gosh, burritos.
Bring
Yeah.
on the burritos.
Week before that, like hot fresh donuts.
Dude, those things were crack cocaine. I mean, we just have to be very careful about that because those could become an addiction.
Absolutely. They're definitely an idol.
Very fast. Yeah, those things were awesome. But
That's good. Yeah, you never know what to expect, but the cool thing is it's always going to be consistent and it's going to be good because we are for our neighbor.
100%.
We are for. Hey, you got your shirt on right now. He's wearing the For Our Neighbor shirt.
Yeah.
We still have a couple of those, and if you want one, you can email me joel@malibupacific.church, and we'll happily send you a For Our Neighbor shirt. We have a couple more. With that said, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, smash that subscribe button and share this podcast with somebody who needs to hear it, and also send the sermon out to people who need to hear it too. You never know, just sending out that one text message could transform a life. So please send that out. With that said, thank you for listening to Malibu Pacific Church Podcast, and we'll see you next week here with a brand new episode. Take care, everybody.